The prophets have been foretelling for years the great revival coming to America in ways it has never been seen before. Have we reached the fullness of times? Do all the pieces to the puzzle of prophecies old and new finally connect? What is God's agenda for America? Let's go on a prophetic journey and find out. What is God's agenda for America? Oh heck, why waste time? On November 1st, 2017, Johnny said this: "Last week, while with the Lord, I heard him say, the present Reformation is greater than 100 revivals." Just 100. I find it fascinating that Q made his first post on August 28th, 2017. Probably just a few days after God showed Johnny this. By the way, do you know what else happened on October 28th, 2017? That same day, John Durham began serving as the interim United States Attorney General, the same John Durham who would later head up the investigation against the investigators. Coincidence? Johnny continued, "Before he is done, I believe he will have the Dow above 30,000 and true unemployment at or under 3%. On February 12th this year, the Dow Jones peaked at 29,551, before, of course, plummeting under 20,000 a month later. After 10 straight months of unemployment rates between 3.5 and 3.7% between May 2019 and February 2020, that number skyrocketed to 14.7% by the end of April. Thanks, of course, to the global pandemic we've all become so familiar with. So close and yet so far. Just the way God likes to set the stage. 9 months later, on July 24th, 2018, Johnny put out a word that left everyone's head spinning. The prophecy begins. "My roar of justice is now coming with its next wave. What was able to resist my last wave will not be able to resist this wave. I am coming in stronger, harder, and higher, and it is going to be disruptive. There is no mountain I won't climb, nor wall I won't tear down, coming to rescue those who need my justice. I wait and wait and I wait because I look to arise with my people. However, there comes a time that I can hold back no longer, and that time has now come. I am coming in like a crimson tide tsunami, and it will be greater than every human or demonic resistance. You will see how I laugh at those who conspire against me. Exposures, exposures, exposures. I am going to expose the very root systems of deep darkness. I am pulling the cloak off the sex trade industry's untouchables. I will shine my unrelenting spotlight on every pedophile ring on the planet. Yes, every pedophile ring. The deeper darkness has been facilitating the lesser darkness, and I am about to expose the deeper darkness. I am coming in waves because I am ultimately uprooting. If done all at once, I would not only just be disruptive, but catastrophic. However, be assured that my waves of justice will not stop until I have changed the direction of your nation and the direction of the world. This is now my time, and I will not be held back. I have predetermined that this is the time I go after nations with their appointed destinies. You will do so with me. This is just the beginning. As I begin, I am busting up rings of darkness in your justice systems. I am busting up rings of darkness in Hollywood. I am busting up rings of darkness in DC. I am busting up rings of darkness in what is called my church, and I am busting up rings of darkness in media. Justice, 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 that is my present cry. My justice comes in so that the least of these can experience mercy and love. I have seen the cries of my little ones, and their sobs were drowned out by my sobs, which have now seeded a roar of justice from within me. The nations are raging, and the wicked are plotting against me, against those that are mine, and my scroll for the nations. But I laugh at them because I am 10 steps ahead of them. Hamans will hang on their own nooses. Goliaths will be beheaded with their own swords. Jezebel will be tossed from their own porches. I am sowing discord into the organized resistance against me, and they will now fracture, fight, and expose one another." This guy's not playing. Kim Clement may have been the Moses that took us to the foot of the promised land, but Johnny Enlow clearly seems to be the Joshua that has been striking fear into the enemy's camp. since. 1 year later, on June 18, 2019, Johnny added yet another shocking link to the prophetic chain. He said, "This week, Sir Winston won the Belmont race with a time of 2 minutes and 28 seconds. His jockey was named Joel. Joel 2:28 says, 'And afterward I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions.' We are in such a day." As to be expected, the 10-1 favorite Sir Winston was named after Sir Winston Churchill. Attention to Winston Churchill is very relevant at this time because we are at a similar juncture in history. Winston Churchill was, for many years, a voice crying in the wilderness, warning of Hitler and the danger to the world that he represented. He was brutally criticized by both media and political opposition in the UK as a blowhard until all realized, almost too late, that he was right. It was his clarity of mind and thought, as well as his courage and resolve, that ultimately led to Hitler and Nazism being defeated. There is no doubt that our own US president fed off of what Churchill stood for, and in the clarity of historical review, it seems clear that apart from Churchill, the whole world might have become Jewless and German-speaking. Churchill, though not a spiritual man, confronted the Antichrist spirit of his day. Today we are in a similar situation with the anti-Semitic, eugenic, Nazi taproot of Churchill's day now being exposed as never before, and now destined to be weeded out of its place of societal influence. What is being referred to as the deep state is in fact left over from that day, and even preceded Hitler. It has had a global agenda of depopulation through promotion of wars, diseases, abortion on demand, etc. It has used socialism, extreme nationalism, health care overhauls, and actually any means possible to achieve this goal. The object has been to allow the deep state elite to more easily control and manipulate the masses. Their agenda has been diabolically sourced, and the time is now ripe for its full exposure and for it to be completely eradicated. President Trump has been raised as a Cyrus whose primary assignment is to demolish the ruling Babylon empire of his day. He has been strengthened by God to take on today's powerful Babylon and decimate it, and it will take the will of Sir Winston to do so. At last, we now break ground into 2020, a year that has already gone down as one for the record books. On January 14, 2020, Johnny comes full circle tracking back to his original word of Joshua and Caleb from September 2015. The 10 spies thought it important to report on the astronomical challenges they assumed the giants in the land would present to the children of Israel. Caleb thought it best to report only on the milk and honey of Canaan, totally minimizing the giants in the land, except to say of them, "They are bread for us." 40 years later, he was proven to be right. The oversized enemies, though theoretically daunting, ended up being just a forgettable snack. The God-ordained circumcision Israel had to experience after crossing the Jordan River ended up being a much more significant event than the totality of resistance of all the giants. Today, we have a similar scenario. We are close enough to a present promised land to see the actual size of the layout of the enemy. We comparatively are as grasshoppers to what is straight ahead of us in our paths. If we get into comparing us versus them, then all courage will depart. However, when you, as Caleb did, compare the enemy versus our God, the enemy so pales in comparison that he is dismissible. The swamp, the deep state, the Soros open society agenda, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Bilderbergs, the CFR, the organized sex traffickers, etc., are altogether a laughable resistance when compared to God. These all presently occupy the promised land of the tops of the 7 mountains: media, economy, government, education, family, arts and entertainment, and religion. We will not enter promised land territory by studying and trying to dismantle the evil occupiers. We will enter the promised land of the 7 mountains of cities and nations by studying and mantling ourselves with who God is in each mountain. 3 months later, on April 3, 2020, Johnny pulled back the veil further still. With so much swirling of contradictory information, with so much restriction on normal freedoms, many are being tempted to panic. My word to you is trust God, trust Trump, and trust the rescue operation. If you have not been given insight and understanding of the big picture of what is going on, everything that is happening is rattling and disconcerting. Truly a disciples in the boat during the storm scenario I shared about in an earlier post. God is orchestrating the greatest rescue operation of humanity, perhaps since Jesus died on the cross as the fulfillment of the Passover lamb. This Passover will be the greatest Passover since the Passover itself, and will resonate throughout history, much like Israel's original Passover and subsequent exodus from Egypt. Both of those Passovers were absolute rescues from heaven, and this one is no different. We were and are so beyond saving ourselves, and this will be the revelation of our day that will shock most when further disclosed. We were done for, but God. So trust God and trust His rescue operation. It is your rescue. It is their rescue. It is our rescue. It is rescue at every level. God always has instruments for His rescue, and this time is no different. In the first Passover, the key instrument was Moses. For the second Passover, the key instrument has to be seen as Mary. This rescue operation is spearheaded by a man named Trump. He has been given a Cyrus anointing from Isaiah 45, in alignment with him being the 45th president, to tear down the Babylonian deep state of our day and to build the economy. The present loss in the economy is temporary, as a pause button has been pushed to allow the central taking down of the bronze gates and iron bars of today's Babylon. We are being set free from a greater bondage than we imagine. So trust God, but trust also His instrument, Trump. We don't trust Trump instead of God, but because of God. God has been so obvious with this one that He holds the cards, that He picked a man named Trump. Trump is His play. Do not panic at measures Trump implements during an hour of emergency. Even if Trump doesn't know what he is doing, he knows what he is doing. On April 20th, 2020, Johnny expanded the vision. This Passover, we hit an unprecedented "it is finished" moment in history. Everything has already changed forever. It is usually impossible to identify historical moments while going through them. It becomes evident after the fact. Paul Revere did not know that his run would resound through the ages as a vitally important moment in history for the United States. Martin Luther could not have guessed that his act of nailing 95 theses to the door of the Wittenberg Chapel would be in history associated with the beginning of the whole Protestant Reformation. William Seymour could not have guessed that his small meeting on April 9, 1906, in a rather humble church, could have sparked America's greatest revival. However, what seems to be different about this time in history is that many do realize it is unprecedented history that is being made. It seems that God has done His best to assist us in recognizing the historic nature of the day we live in. He put in the White House a man named Trump, which is a message all of its own. Biblically, it is on the last Trump that there is the glorious wrap-up of all things. This is just a preliminary Trump prior to that day, but deeply connected to the facilitating of that day. A new kingdom era is being heralded that leads to that day. The great awakening shift that allows for that day is being shepherded by a man named Trump. Hate him, and you are hating God's instrument of history. Whereas other great awakening moments in history were for a segment of society, a nation, a movement, etc., this present awakening is for the whole of society. The internet has allowed the world to be connected as never before and has become the instrument to allow everyone to go through the present world shaking together. This is orchestrated by God. The globalist ideals and orchestrations that desired us all to be connected for surreptitious goals of control have been turned on their head. Even if the globalists succeed in putting everyone in the world under their reins of control, that plan greatly backfires when this lamb who paid the costly price for everyone rips the reins out from under their control. This is why the Great Awakening will be for the ages. What is unique about this Great Awakening is that for the first time, the global underbelly and satanic cult of death of society is being revealed to the masses. The ground zero multi-generational cult of death is being exposed and brought down for all to see. One thing that I have greatly appreciated about Johnny Enlow is that these last few months, he has been willing to move from the platform of prophet to reformer. He has been unfolding God's vision for years. It's not that he has stopped doing that, but that he has added to its practical knowledge, analysis, and edification to put that vision in motion and to storm the gates of hell with it. His vision is expansive, but his message is simple. God has given us the land. Now, go take it. What is God's agenda for America? Perhaps it is now time to turn that question around and ask, what is God's agenda for you in the midst of his bigger plan for America and the nations at large? Please join us for our next video, What is God's Agenda for America, Part 13, early 2020, on the eve of the storm. But before you do, take a minute and be still and pray. Jesus, what is my role? Based off all that I have heard, based off all that I have learned, what can I do today to take the next step?